With the recent renovations to transform the former College Center into the Kim and Donna Bruner Theater Center, the 2015-2016 academic year was the last year that Augustana College used Potter Theater as its primary space for theatrical performances. This last theater season in the Bergendorf Hall of Fine Arts was riddled with murder, mystery, and mayhem, investigating the gray areas of crime, punishment, and revenge. The season featured our spring musical, Sweeney Todd, our winter show, Getting Out, and our fall show, Machinal. Machinal, written by Sophie Treadwell, was a strong start to our season. The play detailed the life of one woman who could not fit into her prescribed mold. Director Jennifer Popple, a theater and women and gender studies professor, emphasized the characters' gender roles, their mechanical movements and appearances, and their inability to escape a society that denies individuality.
Machinal is based on the true story of a woman named Helen Snyder who was found guilty of murdering her husband in 1928 and was consequently the first woman put to death by the electric chair.
Proceed with the witness.
Mrs. Jones, you are the widow of the late George H. Jones, are you not?
Yes, sir.
And how long were you married to the late George H. Jones before his demise?
6 years.
6 years.
Yes.
And it was a happy marriage, wasn't it?
In 1928 in New York, there was a sensational murder trial. Helen Snyder and her lover were put on trial for murdering Helen's husband, and they were both found guilty and they were both put to death. And Sophie Treadwell was really disturbed by the way that the trial was run, partially because the judge would not allow in any information that might have indicated why Helen may have done this. That she wasn't just a cold-blooded murderess, that there were extenuating circumstances which may have included severe postpartum depression. And she was also really disturbed by the way that the press covered the trial, using really sensational descriptions of Helen and just being really unfair. And so what I find really fascinating about this play is that she wrote it the exact same year of the trial and had it premiered in New York, which was the area where Helen Snyder was found guilty. So the audiences would have known and read the newspapers about the trial. And so she wanted to tell the story the way that she thought it should have been told, which was much more about Helen's life experience and the reasons why she might have felt that she had no other option than to murder her husband.
This is nothing like what I thought I would do. Really? No, because I didn't know Caleb yet. And it's funny because I didn't realize I'd been talking about it for that long, but I have wanted to direct this play for well over 10 years. But it's one of those plays, I had to wait for the right time. It was sort of, I had to wait to the point where I felt like as an artist that I could approach it a certain way. I had to do some other shows in order to feel ready to do this. You know, I wrote my program note about how I had never thought about using a beatboxer, but last year, Caleb just happened to be beatboxing in a competition that I just happened to have been asked to be one of the faculty judges for, and then he just happened to have signed up for my class, and then happened to take the second part of it again spring term, where we happened to read Machinal.
She kept, joking with me like, hey, it'd be really cool to have you beatbox in this play that I might want to do sometime, and I was like, haha, yeah, that'd be great, but little did we know it actually ended up happening. I took the second part of the theater class, and near the end of the class, this is the end of spring term of last year, she asked me, she said, hey, I got accepted to be able to do Machinal, and I was wondering if you wanted to be this overseer person. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot.
I had this idea of the machine being performed live by a human being, like to remind us that the machine is a human creation, even though we sometimes try to act like it's not and dehumanize it. And he said, yeah, sure. And so we ended the school year on that. We had no idea what it was going to be. He kind of thought he was just going to be sitting on the stage, beatboxing, providing these sounds. Through the process of many, many weeks of rehearsal, we came to the decision that we were going to create a character for him, which is a little dicey because you have to be really careful about copyright. And I really wanted to abide by and respect the world that Sophie Treadwell had created. But yet at the same time, I thought, there wasn't any beatboxing, I don't think, really around in 1928, and I didn't feel like I was doing a disservice to the play by creating this person who provided the sounds.
No, I don't think we're going to actually have signals. I think it's going to be this whole here.
So like, even that's going to be way too loud.
Is that too loud?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
So there's like, so I have
Okay.
to breathe while I'm beatboxing. So
Okay.
I just, I was originally just going to be doing sounds. It was just going to be a presence on stage, no costume, nothing, and I was going to be producing sounds kind of on the side. We had seen a few plays in class that utilized that, but as we developed the Overseer, we really had to think about what sounds I was going to be doing since I was going to be on stage for a large portion of the play. So, yeah, just different sounds really. We toyed with a bunch of sounds as we were developing the play, and we came up with these ones that just worked in different moments. There were times where we would have whatever part of the play we'd be working on, we would try sounds out, it just didn't work like we wanted it to. Specific sounds worked really well. The telephone was a good one. As the Overseer, just standing there making the telephone sounds, it kind of cut into really dramatic moments in the play. So it was as if I was kind of attacking at them, or I had a crack sound that I would do at different moments that would bother Helen a lot. And the heartbeat, which was really essential for the play. Again, it just would build the tension, different moments. For example, whenever Helen was doing her first monologue in the first episode, it just, as the heartbeat would speed up, she'd speak faster, and then it'd get to the point where she'd break, the heartbeat would stop, and we knew that that was a really symbolic moment for the play, for Helen specifically, for the relationship between the Overseer and Helen.
We created this character called the Overseer, which was the engineer of the whole machine. And that then opened up the door to a lot of really, really fascinating moments that would never have come up for us had we not had this person. Moments where the engineer directly interacts with other characters to get them to snap back into the machine when they are misbehaving and not abiding by the rules that have been created. And a lot of interaction between the Overseer and Helen, because Helen is the only person who can see him. Everyone else is not aware of his presence and his ability to make the world into what he wants it to be.
Not go. No, I'm not going to. You just said you wanted to marry. I can't. I can't. Why can't you? I don't love him. Love. What will that amount to? Will that feed you? Will that clothe you? Will that pay the bills?
No, but it's real just the same.
Real.
If it isn't, what do you count on in life?
I'll tell you what you can count on. You can count that you gotta eat and sleep and get up, clothes on your back, take them off again. You gotta grow old and that you're gonna die. That's what you can count. Anything else is all in your head.
Audrey and I were in auditions, and a first-year student came in named Christine Broughton, who did a monologue, and then we just happened to pair up with Emily Mason, who ended up playing the mother, on a scene between Helen and her mother. Normally at auditions, you see what you need to see within probably even 30 seconds, but we usually, for educational purposes, allow the scene to go for about a minute, 90 seconds, to give the students a chance to ease into the audition if they're nervous. We let the scene go the whole way. We didn't stop them, and neither of us looked at each other. We didn't say anything during it, but it was odd that we would have let a scene go on for, I think they auditioned that scene for about 8-9 minutes, which is unbelievable in auditions. They left the room, we sat there for a moment, and then I remember Audrey and I looked at each other and just said, oh my God, and we thought, this may be it. And that's odd at the first day of rehearsals. But we did callbacks and allowed for the possibility that someone else could play Helen, and it was just so clear that it needed to be Christine. And that says a lot because she's 19, maybe 20 years old, and it's a very, very demanding role.
I remember like when I first got the script, I like locked myself in one of those study rooms, and I was literally like like before the read through, I was like, I literally like chunked, like with the big monologues, like I chunked them up in pieces, and like I was like, okay, just like for these 4 lines, just get that down within the hour or something, like, you know what I mean? So that was just learning the lines was huge, was big. I also, like, in preparing for it, I do some like writing, like I sort of mapped out how old Helen was throughout the show. Like, I know she was 29 at the end, and she was around 21 or 22 when the show began. 3 adjectives I'd use to describe Helen would be fragile, strong, and I'd say, sensitive. She was very strong in that she had to go with emotions for so long and survive that in this societal machine. And then I would say fragile. There's so many there's so many juxtapositions and things that contradict each other.
Helen is both unaware of the realities of the world around her and yet too aware. And so Christine was able to bring all of that to the picture, where you could feel sad for her and you could want to help her, but at the same time know that she's making a series of really terrible decisions, because you can't victimize her, you can't overly sympathize with her, but at the same time you need to do those things as well. Because she's both a product of the machine and a victim of the machine. She knows that she is expected to marry a man with money and have children and have a home and not work, and she knows all of those things that a lot of middle to upper class women would have known during the 1920s, and yet at the same time she knows that there's something wrong with that. She just doesn't know why.
Initially, when he gets married to her, he really does treat her in such a way, or he expects to treat her in such a way that is representative of marriage. She's an extra appendage. She's attached to him in this very spiritual way, in as much as he is capable of that given his circumstances. And she can't jive with that because of who he is. His other responsibilities don't allow her to really attach to him completely. So he's got this person who's so deeply ingrained in his life that is misbehaving, essentially. It's something he can't control that he's supposed to be able to control.
What's eating you? We'll take in the boardwalk. Are you sure you don't want to wash up?
No.
It was a long trip. Sure you don't? Better make yourself at home. I'm going to. Say, close that blind.
It's close, don't you think it's close?
Well, you don't want people looking in, do you?
No.
I guess not, huh? Say, you look a little white around the gills. What's the matter?
Nothing?
You look like you're scared.
No.
Nothing to be scared of. You're with your husband, you know.
I know.
Happy.
Yes.
Come here and give us a kiss.
For the husband, this was an interesting thing, because in the script, Helen describes her husband, George H. Jones, as he's bald, he is large, and she considers him to have fat hands, and she hates when he touches her. Keenan Odenkirk has none of those qualities, but it ended up being an interesting thing to think about, because I know some productions have cast George H. Jones to be somebody who, they put him in a fat suit, they put him in a bald cap, they do things that really make his appearance more avant-garde or more non-realistic. And we just decided to have Keenan look pretty much the way that he does. He wore glasses and some kind of strange suits, I guess, from the 1920s, but we just kept his appearance the same, because we thought Other women may not necessarily view him that way. The fact that she is disturbed by him and that when he touches her, she is disgusted, that can come from somebody who looks like anything. And even if she describes him in a way that he didn't actually look like, didn't end up mattering.
These are stereotypes of the rich white American husband, ultimately. And I think to present that stereotype with such an incredibly negative connotation of him being so cold and hateful, essentially, towards his wife.
Here's your man.
But ultimately being so unaware of the incredible heartbreak and horror that he's causing in her life and other people's lives, to be coupled with that standard set of qualities that is so evident in so many people, I think would merit some sort of self-examination in people who maybe don't think very often of their families, who are a little more selfish, who are a little more focused on the day-to-day instead of the long-term, who are not thinking about their lives in general, they're thinking about the expectations of what everyone else believes their life should be. I pictured most of the time while playing him, in front of his eyes at all points in time is just a giant list of points he has to hit. Points he has to hit by a certain age, things that he has to do to be seen as a man, to be seen as someone who's successful. And if he does not hit these points, he is worthless. He is not worth being alive. He's not worth having, which is why Christine's character, Helen, decides to ultimately, I believe, kill him, because I think she realizes that were she to leave him alive and just divorce him, it would be worse for him than just killing him.
One of Keenan's words to describe George H. Jones was angular. I suppose in contrast, I would be, I don't know, circular. Richard Rowe is just a circle. Just a giant circle.
Different connotation.
No, but it's like
That
he
works.
Like leads, he leads a cyclical sort of life in a way where he Sorry.
Exactly. See, there's.
I mean, think about it. You've got George H. Jones, who's very rigid in everything that he does, but then you've got the lover, who's so fluid. So circular works really well, where you kind of flow with each thing. You're very smooth talking, very, down to earth.
Helen was very much a game changer for Richard Rowe and his womanizing ways, not wanting to be a part of this rigid, mundane pattern of living. They want excitement, they want adventure, they want to live, they want to feel things, they want to be alive and not be a part of this cold, mechanical world. And that's where the connection is.
Well, I'm not a crowd, bro, with me.
All set here, huh? Dick was just about to beat it.
That was before I met the little lady.
The third role that we had to be really careful and considerate about was the role of the lover, because this is the man who Helen meets, who helps her see that there is a possible way to freedom. Now, unfortunately, in her mind, the only way to freedom is to murder her husband, but it needed to be somebody who the audience could believe Helen could fall in love with. And in some ways, this character, even though he's a little bit of a player, does have a lot of heart, though. And I do believe, even though in real life there was a lot of really kind of nasty stuff that happened later between the lover and the real life Helen, Ruth Snyder, in the play, he really appears to care about her. And so Debo was just the perfect mix of all of those qualities. And the way that Christine and Debo interacted with one another from the very beginning in their scenes was so vulnerable, and that was something that was really important, that we peeled away all of that pretense that came with a lot of the other characters in the play, and with Helen a lot of the time too, to just expose the true vulnerability that can happen between like-minded people who really care about one another. So I had a really great team of people that I brought together to work on the show, because one thing I knew about this is, due to the very challenging nature of what we were about to do, deal with an avant-garde show which demands a different acting style from some people, and we were going to be doing some choreography that also was something that was new. I knew that I wasn't going to have time, nor did I have the expertise to do all of those things. So one of the things that I did that I'm really grateful about is that I was able to split rehearsals sometimes. And so some of the actors who had already been blocked by me, so shown where to physically move in the space in a big way, would work in the theater office with my two assistant directors, Kayla Saucedo and Audrey Johnson, on some of the character work, some of the decisions about acting style and those things that needed to be done but that I didn't necessarily have time to do during rehearsal. And Kayla and Audrey had sat through by that point several weeks of rehearsal so that they knew what the vision was that I was trying to convey, and then they were able to go in and process that sort of work with the actors. I also had a student choreographer, or she called herself a movement coach actually for the show, named Lindsay Graham. So Lindsay came in and worked with the students on exactly how to create the very mechanized movement or some of the ritualized movement that they did within the machine, which I was really grateful about.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Up 2, 3, 4, 8, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Hello, George H. Jones Company. Mr. J, he's in conference.
Hot dog.
Do you think he'll marry ya?
If she'll have him.
If she'll have him?
Do you think she'll have him?
How much does he get?
Plenty. 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 25,000.
And plenty for away.
Gas preferred 4s, oils 5s, steel 6s.
Hot dog.
In a sense, you are not your own person. You have to kind of lose a lot of your humanity when you're approaching the scene and your character and different things like that. And so it becomes difficult because things that you would normally call, like a bad acting technique or different things like that, they're the right choices. And so that becomes, an obstacle that you have to overcome.
And everything that we did here, we had to approach it with a sense of simplicity to really boil things down to their most core values and their most core meanings, so we could kind of blatantly, flagrantly make them appear on stage instead of having real human beings who had their own souls and their own personalities. They were just concepts in a human form, because it's all part of this one big working machine that is Helen's brain.
In production meetings, a lot of the time, what we would do is talk through what was the set design looking like, how could we best engage with the set, how would we use the levels, because there were gears that were created that were different levels that could function as different spaces. Were the actors limited to being in certain spaces, and why? When did we want it to feel claustrophobic and why? And especially, where was the overseer going to be? We had a scaffolding that was created that was really high up. That ended up being kind of the overseer's lair a lot of the time. And so we would work through a lot of those questions in the production meetings as we talked to our technical director, Andy Gutschall, who also worked a lot with us on how to use the lighting to best support these ideas about the space and the machine, and created some really great shadows and jagged light patterns. And I think what was really interesting was a lot of the things that we did would be considered maybe bad if it was a realistic show, because we wanted the lighting to show in certain ways, which a lot of times you're taught not to do in a realistic play.
Okay, because then you're in place
Yeah.
with a little bit of time.
And you want me like up here? Oh my god, this is really scaring me.
Okay.
Just one step, that's it.
Okay. We'll put it on the list for. My biggest fear is having to apologize to your mother for injuring you in your first play, so do not hurt yourself. I don't want to make your mom mad.
It's your fault, I know.
Okay. All right. Could you turn the lights on overhead just for a second, Andy? I just want to find where Caleb can sit. So, Lauren, do we have a cue right now to pull down, or I should ask Andy, when we pull down the garbage man's light, can we also take out Caleb's light? Because he will exit here for a while, right when the garbage man is done. Or when the mom comes back on the log.
The light is gone.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It's just the down light.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
I'll leave it once the garbage man comes in. Right?
When he leaves.
When he leaves.
Yeah, because I don't want it to be too distracting, so I think what we'll do, actually, I would like to see it just to make sure that it
let's go
isn't
back
super
then.
distracting.
Then let's go back to when Christine says, all right.
And then Joe, this will be the white noise, yeah? Or no, the assembly line.
Why isn't it working?
already be over here?
Yes.
Why isn't it playing today? There we go.
It leaves a more natural texture, and then it also blends together the paints. So you don't have two stark different colors, but you still have more than a flat surface. A lot of ochres and oranges and reds, some brown.
Not very cool.
Really, it's just a bunch of dirty metal. Yes, Machinal translates to the life machine. Yeah.
So it's one big machine.
They made it into a machine, but it's like a machine that is not nice, so it is rusty. Okay, well, the idea for props for this show is that they're mostly not real, they're just miming them. The ones that are real, there's going to be two versions of each prop. Like a dull pre-version that doesn't really stick out in the main character's memory, and then a bright post version for the memories that are more important to her. So everything is going to have two versions of itself. And everything post is in the very last scene after she's killed her husband. So it's like the freedom that she's achieved is visually see that was.
How do you think this show has challenged you for finding props or for making props?
It has to get done in like a week.
Had you done costume designing for a 1920s era play before?
We're in 1935 with Something's Afoot, and also an opera. Ernest Worthing was that late 20s, early 30s. That was last year. It's interesting because I actually have family photos from that time frame in our photo albums. It was the flapper era, and still strong Art Deco, So there was, like we were just talking about, the hat every lady wore was that cloche, that snug little curvature that hugged the cheek in many different variations. But clothing still was, a lot of it was hip accents. It was a drop waist. We weren't, things were at the knee. We were climbing up a little bit with the hem length. Still had a pretty sturdy shoe. It usually hugged the foot. And the heel, and the man was pretty generic. But
Do you think you could mention that? You could say about how most of the costumes were monochromatic, and do you know why green was chosen as a color for the highlight?
For what we had going on with the set design, because we were into rust and metals, and that was probably the best color to pop off of that. And everybody else blended into the machinery.
The general costume design for all of the characters on stage except for Helen and the Overseer was gray, just dull gray clothing. My character included. However, I had I guess a special edition. I had these green suspenders that matched Helen's outfit, which helped me in developing my character in relation to his connection with Helen. And I think that you know having that visible connection for the audience and for myself helped me portray a sympathetic character.
Yeah, I made it. Well, originally you were going to wear a wig too.
We did not talk about it.
It was the worst wig ever. It was I want to now.
No.
It was if you ever want to not order a really bad wig for yourself, it's the PETA wig from the Hunger Games. It doesn't look anything like his hair, and Keenan tried it on and was just so sad. I almost want you to go get it, but I think you might have ruined it.
I'm so good.
Because his. Well, your hair is now, it's perfect.
Basically, I had probably 3 different kinds of hair product in the back, and I was just constantly reapplying it and then combing it and then spraying more hairspray on it. And it actually worked out really well, because you think of like in cartoons and these representations of these very robotic people, they have like human hair, but it's solid metal. I basically had a helmet on. I mean, there's so much stuff in there. It was basically a helmet. And it ended up working really, really well, I think. It fit really well. And having that constriction on my head felt like I had some sort of brain control thing on there that was basically being controlled by the Overseer the whole time. So
we knew Helen was going to have lighter hair, and Emily, with great, compliments to her, has like this gorgeous, shiny California blonde hair that I was like, no, we can't have that. You're supposed to be this tired stenographer. I'm sorry. And Sarah Baker, we decided she's like the it girl. I mean, she's the girl that's like on top of all of the fashions, and so we wanted her to have a little bit of a flapper-inspired look, and so we did. And I think it looks really cute, the bob.
It's even helped me get into character.
Yeah,
I don't know.
because we did the pearls too later, and that was just really fun. And, and Helen's just. Christine has really nice hair, but I don't know, we wanted her to sort of be on the brink of, she's a little bit stylish, but yet also kind of trapped in being a little bit old-fashioned too, so she has this kind of pin-curled wig, and and I think it also, you were so, like, when you tried on the costume and the wig, it was, both of us were like, something's happened. There was something really that just changed about you in like a chemical way almost.
Yeah.
When you put on the wig and the costume, it was strange. So I think, I don't know, it added to it.
But why the green?
Oh, sorry. Partially because of the oxidation that happens on copper. And also, I like one of the reviewers described you as a seedling, and I kind of love that. It's a more natural color, and so we like the idea of everything for her being green.
How many redesigns and designs did it take you to get the makeup down?
Oh my goodness.
this. I initially started with more natural makeup, and then I talked with the director. She's like, this isn't quite what I want. It's like too normal. We don't want normal. And so then I went back and I found some inspiration from like runway design makeup, and it was really crazy and sparkly and all up in your face. So I was like, let me try this, and she loved those designs. But then the difficulty came when we had to put them on the actors, because my designs were kind of small, and on stage it didn't translate well for the audience, so we had to get bigger with the designs every single night. We finally got it. I think I thought of the society that Machinal takes place in, that everything's so strict and rigid. I didn't want like, you know, soft. I wanted it hard edges because all these people are so mechanical. Depending on the complexity, I would say like the simplest took at least 8 minutes minimum. But then going to like Caleb, who had all the gears on his arms, they needed to be outlined, and he had like this huge triangle on his face. His easily took like half an hour. And we were like, we need something permanent on his arms so that it stays throughout the shows, because putting on an individual gear like with normal eyeshadow makeup would take way too long. It wasn't realistic. So then one of the makeup crew, one of the girls, she like works with henna. So she was like, well, maybe we can try gears with henna, and it worked out perfectly. It stayed for the whole week, and then we only had to reapply once before the next week. Basically with all of the characters, they have to have geometric sharp edges. So you tape off their faces and then just fill it in. And it's this awesome, bold look. Yeah. Like when I pictured dinosaurs in my head, they were like,
they're stopping your
good. That's totally how you look at Steve Jobs at the Wobbs. You don't know at this point. You don't know what that knows. I mean, beans.
Leave the Spanish to me.
Keenan sabe.
Keenan knows.
Well, how you feel about playing George H. Jones? Cause I'm out. I'm done. Take life by the sports. Bring the gravy.
I'm done. R.I.P.
Why are we doing
Play.
Going to enjoy life now.
Because it's really uplifting, damn it.
Why can't we just go to football games?
Because you're a
Do
twisted
what everyone else
individual,
does.
Keenan. All of us are twisted people, and we're not normal enough to go to
Be
football.
dramatic right now to make a great picture.
Bring the baby.
You don't get to say.
It's my life.
It's really easy to underestimate the effect that adding an audience can actually have. So once you nutcases show up, we start making totally different choices, because we end up seeing where do they laugh, where do they cry, where's there just this air of uncomfortable energy in the room. And you end up playing those parts up, or dialing them back, or adding something new, trying new things every single night. Not even a single one of our performances has been identical to the next.
I also noticed something too. The overseer really can't change much, but I've like seeing everything. There's depending on the night and the audience. Some audiences will laugh at a lot of different things, little things that Sophie Treadwell just throws in that is obviously supposed to be funny, but other audiences don't, because depending on the audience, might not take it as being funny, and it's such a dark play as it is, so it's kind of hard to laugh at things sometimes. But then all you amazing people just definitely roll with it. Like whenever it's a funny scene, like you kind of take that and just like the little changes in the way you act. It's pretty epic.
What I love about the comedy of the actual show is that it comes across as funny initially, and then almost always directly after whatever joke or funny thing that happens, there's a moment of recognition where you see that what just happened was only funny to us because that is not how we function in society outwardly. But inwardly, it is reality, and that is a moment of recognition that's like, oh crap. Pre-show music, yeah.
I don't know what it was, but it totally set the stage. Like, you walk in, things you're kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
This music is really kind of creepy, but beautiful at the same time.
I just really hope for the future, like these sorts of odd shows, expressionistic shows, have kind of been the staple for Augustana for many years. And months after a production, they're still thinking through them.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't have this discussion about some of these shows, and I just hope that we don't completely lose that, because this is where the ideas of those shows grow and blossom into different things.
Which is so cool, because it wasn't mirroring everyday life. It wasn't mirroring everyday life, but it was like the societal norms because of the machine.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah. I don't know, it was just cool. Like, we just, like, got to a place where we could totally, like, explore, just, like, do new things. And we didn't just kind of, with ourselves, like, go with emotions of, this is where I stand. This is the way I say it. And you know what I mean? Like, we could just really...
It was so in our blood and bones that we could improv in this style.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And considering the amount of time we had to get the show together, to get that sort of style, after having acted the way most people act for years and years and years, to get that all of a sudden and be able to utilize that so readily was kind of incredible.
Yeah.
Because there was a piece of us in it, I think, ultimately.
Yeah.
There just really was, she let us have our own ideas about the play, and all of them were heard and all of them were utilized.
We had an amazing cast, unbelievable people that, you know, everybody worked so well as their character, and I really couldn't imagine anybody else playing the characters that we had. And Popple, of course, Popple was just great. If it wasn't for her, I don't think the play would have become anything at all.
And Kayla Saucedo and Audrey Johnson,
Yep.
they're, like, their dramaturgical work and assistant direction, yeah.
And Lindsay too was really great.
Oh my gosh, Lindsay, freaking Lindsay.
Everybody, I felt like, was all in. And so the amount of commitment that everybody brought to the show was beyond what I had not expected necessarily, but that I knew would happen. And what I loved about the show, and what for me ended up being so special about the show, was that at the end of the day, everybody did their best work because everybody did their best work. So I kept watching people come up with these really interesting ideas for parts that they were in that I would have never necessarily thought about. And when I sat back and watched the production when it was done, I thought, nobody in the audience knew, but I knew that's there because Thomas had this idea. This is there because Drew had that idea. This is there because on this particular night, Keenan and Christine played with this moment, or Debo had this idea. And so I think for theater, and sometimes what I feel sad about that people can't watch, because people can't watch the process, is that there's all of this invisible stuff that's there living in the performance that we all know is there because of this layering process that we've done. Things that got left behind, things that got added in. And I'm really grateful because the atmosphere that was created for this particular production allowed everyone to bring their best selves and their best work to the forefront, so that the production ended up being what it was in a way that it never would have been if it had just been me coming up with these ideas. I have no idea what it would have looked like if it had just been me going in there and saying, here's what we're going to do, and not allowing people to give those sorts of ideas, because the play was so much a part of all of us and a creative process that we all gave so much to, and I'm really grateful for that.